Kindergarten is really more than just learning your ABCs and your colors like it used to be a long time ago.
It's kind of like a house where you have to build a strong foundation to build upon, and kindergarten is that strong foundation. And we try to give them everything we can to make sure that they have the tools and the strategies necessary to build upon as they go up into first and second and third and throughout their learning career. They get a lot in kindergarten. It's not what we used to know kindergarten as, where it was kind of more the social base. This is very academic, but we try to make it as fun in an academic way as we can.
By the end of kindergarten, they should know how to read. They should have math skills, adding, subtracting fluently within 5, but really should be adding, subtracting up to 10. They're counting to 100 by 10s and 1s. They are reading CVC words, and the CVC word is a consonant, vowel, consonant, such as cat, sit, leg, things like that.
Every day we work on listening skills, following directions, making sure that they're working together in a group. We do a lot of talking to each other and activities, and let's share our thoughts, and working to make sure that they know that in a group setting it's not just them, that there are other people that they need to think about.
The benefits of full day are the kids get to go to specials such as PE, art, music, library. They also get to go to lunch, which is really fun for the kids because they get to sit with their friends and eat lunch with their friends. Most kids really like that.
Testing 1, 2.
Also in the afternoon, in the classrooms, we really get to extend their learning in a fun way. So we put them in centers where they're playing games with their peers on things that we learned in the morning.
They know that when they come here that they're going to learn, but it's also going to be a fun environment.
I've been with the school district about 2 years, coming up in April, and I am the school nutrition coordinator for overseeing the elementary schools and the sites, and we want to feed the children every day. We want them to know that they will always have a meal. They have breakfast, lunch, and snacks at the schools that it pertains to, and that it's always going to be nutritious for them. We follow the My Plate guidelines, and so that they're always getting a meal that will satisfy them and will benefit them in multiple ways. There are several programs that Food and Nutrition does. A few of them are, we really have an investment in wanting to make sure that the kids don't go hungry over the summer. So we had 17 sites over last summer that were open to anyone under 18 could come and eat for free, breakfast and lunch daily. And so that's a service that we like to provide to make sure that kids know that they can have food even when school's out, that they have that safety net of being able to get fed.
I'm Jan Kalesa. I've been at Copperwood for 15 years. I started out as a cashier because I wanted to be on my boys' schedule, and I did that for 2.5 years, and then the rest I've been manager here. I'm responsible for ordering the food. I supervise 5 employees underneath me, and we love it here. This is my second home. We serve breakfast from 7:30 to around 7:50, 7:55. And then when breakfast is done, we just start going right into making our lunch, panning it up and planning it out, and setting up our fruit and veggie bar. We started with the fruit and veggie bar, where every child has to have a half a cup of fruit or vegetable, and that was met with resistant parents. Why are you making my child do this? And I said, well, we are at a school, we're here to educate them. So we're teaching them that fruits and vegetables are healthy for them. And they get to try things they might not have at home. And they don't have to eat it, but I think when they're sitting down and still maybe hungry, they'll start trying different things and we can get them to eat a little healthier. I live in this neighborhood and these are my neighbors, this is my community. And seeing the children come in and happy and smiling and excited and telling me that this is the best meal ever, and knowing that I get to feed them and it's a great meal for them and it's choices they like, and I'm not paying for the meal. I get paid to do it, but it's not even about that. It's just seeing them smile and knowing they've been taken care of and they're happy to come in here, and it's very rewarding.
Super apprehensive when he started in kindergarten. He had a little bit of a difficult time adjusting in preschool to separation with me, and I was really nervous, but within the first couple of days he fell into a good routine and didn't even want me to walk him to class anymore. So he was instantly enamored by the whole concept of Sunset Heights and kindergarten and the freedom that that allowed him, and it's been really good for him. I thought that he might not be ready for a full day in kindergarten, but quickly after starting the year, I realized that it was exactly what he needed for growth, and he's done remarkably well. My husband and I have been amazed at how much he's changed, even in just his personality, his behavior at home, his willingness to try things and to put himself out there has, just exponentially grown over this, the 5 months he's been in school. His math skills have really improved. His teacher really has focused on that with him because he's doing so well with reading and other areas. So what I like best about it is that she, individualized his educational experience for kindergarten. What I appreciate most is the level of communication between the teachers and myself. I want to be involved, but I wanted to give Cole the space he needed to kind of grow and do this a little bit on his own, to navigate it on his own. And we found a good balance with that. And I always want to know what's going on, and they're amazing about the weekly newsletters and sending home information, and she's available anytime I need to go in and talk to her about him. Every day has a new experience, whether it's academically or socially, and socially has been really good for him. He's made lots of friends. He has girlfriends and boyfriends and all sorts of different relationships, and it's been exciting for us to watch that and hear about that every day. Well, I couldn't be more pleased with Peoria Unified School District. They've met every need that my husband and I had for our son, and I wouldn't put him anywhere else. I can't say enough about it. I really can't. And there's not one part of it for me that has been a negative for kindergarten for Cole at all. It's just been awesome.
Testing, 1, 2, testing. Sound check, 1, 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to this republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Martinez, Board Clerk. Mrs. Beverly Pangarelli is our Board President, who's out with family. So thank you, and we'll move on to the next item, which is staff recognitions.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. Well, it's an honor to be here with you this evening and share with you some of our incredible students. Each of Peoria Unified's high schools is led by a student body president who is an elected leader on their campus. Student body presidents from all 7 of our high schools compose the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. These young leaders are given the opportunity to meet with our district level administration on a quarterly basis, and we are especially proud of the work that they accomplish. Dr. Stifler, Mr. Ken Hicks, as well as many of our K-12 administrators often meet with them, and I have an opportunity to participate in those lunches as well, and I can tell you it's truly the highlight of the week, typically the highlight of the month when we get to spend time with these bright young leaders. The Advisory Council provides our administration with an opportunity to receive feedback and to stay up to date on what's happening on each of the campuses. It also provides our student body presidents with a time to discuss key issues that many of our students may be dealing with, so it allows them to serve as really a representative of their campus and all of our high school students. These dedicated students are role models on their campus. They are probably by far the busiest students that we have in each of our schools. They do so much to build excitement on their campuses, to serve as strong role models and strong leaders, and then in addition to that, take time out of their busy schedules to spend a little bit of it with us. I'm really pleased to have a majority of them here with us this evening. A couple of them, because they are so busy and overcommitted, have some other things that they're attending this evening, especially as the end of the school year is wrapping up. A number of them, I believe, are also involved in some athletics. But I do want to thank the ones that are here with us this evening and take a moment to recognize them. We also have some of our student council advisors who are here with us this evening, and I can tell you they put in countless hours in addition to the roles that they serve on their campus. That's their primary role, to support the student council. I know that these students speak so highly of each and every one of their student council advisors. So advisors, could you stand so we could give you all a big round of applause, please? And before I formally introduce our student council leaders to you, I'll invite Dr. Stifler to make his way around to the front of the dais, as I know he has a little token of his appreciation to share with him. While he's making his way around, I know we have some principals and assistant principals on our campuses. Many of them serve in close contact with the student body, presidents bouncing ideas off of them and helping to develop them as leaders as well. So we really appreciate the role our principals play in supporting the student council and student government programs on our campuses. So principals, assistant principals, can you please stand so we can give you a big round of applause as well. And at this time, students, I'm going to call your name, and when I do, if you would come forward and accept a token of appreciation from Dr. Stifler, if you would remain standing up there, because of course we have to snap some photos, and advisors that are here, any parents that are here as well, or friends or family, please, you're welcome to come up in front and snap those pictures too, so don't be shy in doing so. Our first two students, I don't believe were able to join us this evening. If they come in late, we'll certainly recognize them. But Andre Edwards from Cactus High School. Yeah, we'll still give him a round of applause. Joshua Freed from Sunrise Mountain High School. Ken Kobashigawa, that you met during leading our Pledge of Allegiance, from Ironwood High School. Pedro Salazar from Raymond S. Kellis High School. Eli Williams from Centennial High School. Natalie Carranza from Peoria High School. Cade Moffitt from Liberty High School. And Devin Hebron from Peoria Flex Academy. These students are truly shining examples of strong leadership, role models, and really we have benefited so greatly from their feedback. If you have a chance to speak with them, they are articulate beyond belief. We know they are going to go on into the world and represent their schools, their district, and themselves so well. So students, we are just so incredibly proud of you. Keep smiling and scrunch together for a few more photos. And students, I'm going to invite you over here with me. And if you'll come stand back behind the podium, I believe Dr. Stifler and maybe some of our board members may have some either questions or comments for you about what it is that makes you so remarkable as leaders. So, Mrs. Monica Ceja Martinez, I give you our student body presidents.
Let's go ahead and start off with, okay. Kathy, Ms. Connect, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Gentlemen and lady, could you share with us what inspired you to enter into a life of service for your campuses?
What inspired me mainly was I just wanted to get the most out of high school. I just really wanted to be involved and try to make a difference on my campus. But for those who have any interest at all in getting involved at your school, I would highly recommend it. It's definitely the best decision I've made personally, and it just makes all of high school way better. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone want to add to that?
Well, what motivated me really to do it is that I wanted to make a difference in other students' high school careers, and just seeing the happiness that we put on other students it just makes me so happy, and it's amazing.
Nice.
Something that inspired me was to kind of see a change in my campus and the atmosphere of going to school and everyone, like, I was trying to motivate everyone to go to school on Spirit Week, make them want to dress up. And I can say for my freshman year and my senior year, I've definitely impacted that school in a positive way, and I'm very proud of that. So.
Very good. Anyone else? You're all welcome.
I was motivated a lot by my sibling. My sister was in student council. She was a student body president as well back when she was in high school. It was awesome to go onto campus occasionally and see the kind of effect that she had on the other students. The campus kind of glow up around her. It was kind of interesting to see like the kind of effect that she had on campus, and I wanted to have a similar effect and kind of change things for the better around my school.
Interesting.
I was motivated by who now is the advisor of student council. She kind of made it feel like I would be good at that position. She's actually really wonderful. And the other thing that motivated me was the potential that student council has for schools. Because of the fact that I was able to be part of that organization and change so many lives at our schools, that just really excited me and enticed me into trying to run for the position.
What motivated me to be in the position of student council was probably the excitement of it and having something more to do with my school and like seeing how my teachers and the students feel about me as that positive role model.
Very good. Thank you all for sharing. Thank you.
Ms. Doan?
Okay, so I heard several of you mention the effect that you have on your classmates. Does anybody have a really good story about encouraging someone that was more apathetic towards school and encouraging them and getting them involved? Does anybody have a good story?
Okay, so one of my best friends, actually, his name's Tyler Flores. He's our senior class president now at Liberty High School. I was friends with him like end of freshman year, beginning of sophomore year, and he like really just disliked school. Like he did not want to come. He didn't dress up for a lot of spirit days or anything. And just one year he's like, dude, like I want to join student council. And I was like, okay, yeah, definitely do it. And yeah, ever since then he's been one of the most involved kids at our school, and he's just been great for our campus. And it's just because of student council, mainly. I can attest to that, so, yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Eli, tell her about Unity Day.
Unity Day is kind of a convention we have where all the student councils come to one school, and this year it was at Centennial. So for Unity Day this year, everyone came, and our theme was kind of based around Star Wars, and we did it, the acronym was Use Your Force. And FORCE stood for flexibility, organization, respect, charity, and enthusiasm. So for each of those events, we did different games, and we focused on how we could be better leaders based with that. And I think we were actually able to teach a lot of the student council members different things with how they can use those attributes to better their leadership abilities. So it was a really cool event to put on.
Thank you. Come on, we got to hear some more. Any more stories?
For our Spring Spirit Week, we wanted to kind of include more of the student body with our activities. One of the things that we did was we had a kid who really wanted to sing at the assembly. He reached out to us, and we immediately said yes, of course. Like we'll have you come in and sing for us. And he came into our classroom and he sung for us, and everybody was like super for it. And we put him right into the assembly, and it was amazing to see like the passion that he went into it at. You would always see him like practicing, or he'd come up to any of the student council members and be like, I'm so excited for this. He's somebody who's not really too out there, and it was awesome to kind of like put him in the spotlight and see him kind of blossom in that.
Thank you.
So I actually have a story. So my freshman year, my first semester, I was that kid that like put their headphones in, and I just strictly like went to class, came out of class, went to my next class, and went home. I remember telling my mom, I want to graduate early, like, I don't want to be here. And I was that kid that we try to inspire every day. And then I remember it was November of my freshman year. There was a junior in student council, and she came up to me and she was like, hey, like, make sure you sign up for student council. Like, their elections is coming up for freshmen. And I was like, no, like, maybe I'll do it junior year. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it later on. And she's like, oh my God, I hate when people say that. You guys never end up doing it and whatever. So I was like, oh, like, so then I grabbed a packet, I turned it in, and I ran for elections. And I think she impacted my life from freshman year to now. I think I'm a better student and a person. So thanks to her, like, she really inspired me. And I never thought, like, my senior year when I won student body president, I messaged her and I was like, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. All because, like, she impacted my life. And then a freshman, she came up to me, she's in my student council, and she told me that last year at, was it elementary day? Yeah, elementary day. I talked to her. I don't remember talking to her, but I remember talking to a group of girls, and I was like, you guys should join, like, cheer and student council and blah, blah, blah. And then now she's in my student council class, and she told me this, like, a week ago, and I was like, she's like, so because of you, like, I did cheer and I'm in student council. Like, I'm so grateful. I was like, thank you so much for telling me that. Like, that impacted me. So I impacted somebody like that girl impacted me. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Over at Peoria Flex Academy, the Friday or Thursday before spring break, we had a field day, basically. And we took everyone and broke everyone up into teams. And, of course, there are the people that, oh, I don't want to be doing this. I'd rather be asleep in class. And take them outside and get the blood flowing. And the city of Peoria helped us by bringing some stuff out for us to use, like jump houses or bouncy houses and stuff like that. And we had some obstacle courses set up and encouraged the teachers to even join in. And by the end of the day, a lot of the students had different opinions on it. And I was happy to see, like, that change.
Excellent. Very good.
Well, at Raymond S. Kellis, during, like, my freshman year, there wasn't really, like, a lot of school spirit, like, going on. But I remember, like, when I first joined student council, we're like, okay, first things first, we got to do something about this. So what we did, we started, like, brainstorming ideas and ways that we could improve the school spirit around our campus. And throughout, like, high school, I started realizing that more people were dressing up for Spirit Week, more people were coming to our events, and we were getting just a lot more participation in Cougar Pride is what we love to call it. And just, like, growing up or, like, maturing with the school and watching, like, all the school spirit coming along was just amazing, like, thing to, like, realize, because now we have a great attendance at our games. People are, like, dressing up for our Spirit Weeks, and it's just amazing.
Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
So, first off, thank you for putting yourselves out there. I know it's, probably not easy and somewhat nerving, when you're going through the process, running for student body president. I'm certain, and you've discussed a few stories around the lives that you've changed on your campus, but I'm certain there are many others that you're unaware of that you've done just the same. So thank you for that. To the advisors, thank you very much for taking the time and continuing to nurture and inspire these individuals, as they move on, further beyond our walls at PUSD. And that leads me into my question, and any one of you can certainly answer, but being a part of this student government and certainly being student body president, when you take a look at your future, beyond PUSD walls and look at your college aspirations, career in life, how is this, instill confidence in your future?
I think being a part of student council has given me the confidence and guidance to look for different careers that can also impact my community greater. So after high school, I plan on going into the Navy for 4 years. And then out of the Navy, I will be going into college to study architecture and then move to a developing area and begin helping out by building eco-friendly environment for kids and adults to enjoy altogether.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think student council has given me kind of the confidence to go for things that I might not otherwise go for. A lot of my family kind of went to four-year universities and stuff, but I've decided to take a different route. I want to chase my athletics and go run for Gcqc down at community college, which typically wouldn't be my normal response, but I think student council has kind of instilled me with the confidence to go with where my passions lie, where I think it can be more successful. I've really enjoyed the time that I spent in student council, and it's given me the ability to kind of like talk to people and tell them like how I feel about things and kind of chase those feelings.
One of the big things that student council has done for me has made me realize like how much other people are in need. And something that I plan on doing after high school is I'm going to go on a 2-year mission for my church. And a lot of the time spent on the mission is serving other people in your area. So whether they need help with literally anything, because there's a set requirement for the amount of hours of service you have to do per week. So with student council, we were able to set up different events and do different fundraisers to help out charities like Make-A-Wish, and we did a rack week. And it just kind of helped me realize that, you know, as leaders, it's really important for us to reach out to the people that are in need. So that's helped me with that, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like what Eli said, student council, it's really taught me, like, all of us are very, like, very privileged and very lucky to be in the positions that we are, and there's a lot of people that don't have the opportunities that we have. And when we're in a position like this, there's a lot that you can do to help those kinds of people. And I think that's probably been one of my favorite parts of student council is the community service we do and the help we give to others. So, yeah.
I think student council definitely gave me the confidence to go out in the world and do something different to impact like lives out there. I definitely want to start a club. I'm going to ASU next year. I definitely want to start a club for anybody. I mean, he's not here right now, but Josh Freed, he's the student body president at Sunrise Mountain, and he kind of shared with us that he wants to start a club for people that are like need help internally, and kind of just a club where you feel comfortable. I mean, you can go there if you need help or if you feel like no one's there for you. And that's what I was talking to my mom about last week, and so we kind of have the same idea. So hopefully we touch base and we can start, like we started a club this summer at ASU. And I also am looking into traveling around the world to like do Feed My Starving Children. It's a organization that we pack food and send it off to different countries that don't have food. And this year I really got passionate about it, so I'm hoping to go towards that route.
Student council made me want to it made me confident enough to want to look for a problem in the world and like make a difference and like build a career about that problem. So when I go into college, I plan on being more involved with like the community and stuff like that. And like Natalie said, with those clubs, like I plan on like being a part of those, and if not, like starting a club or something like that. And just student council just really helped me like look at my community and just want to give back.
So I'll leave you guys with this, and I'm sure I'm going to misquote him, but Albert Einstein said something to the extent of a life serving others is a life worth living. So I applaud each and every one of you for understanding really truly the power that you have to impact lasting change in others. So thank you.
Okay, my favorite. I was in your shoes a long time ago, a while ago, student body president at Centennial High School. So the possibilities are literally endless, and I look forward to see where you guys end up. And please come back and share with the governing board, with PUSD, your advisors that have taken so much time to help encourage and build that confidence. With that being said, just a quick show of hands, how many were in student government all 4 years? 3 years? 2? And then your first year? Awesome. A little bit about me, I ran every year and lost, and it wasn't until my senior year that I won student body president, so kudos to you for sticking in there, and everybody else. Definitely you impact your community, which is your school culture. If you didn't have a student government, it would look a lot different. Your engagement, I will tell you that skill of getting engaged, who you serve is huge. That skill is also used in the real world, in corporate world, any job you want. How are you going to engage those you serve? And so my question is, you guys are all awesome leaders, but we obviously don't have all the answers. What did you guys learn from each other?
Mainly what I learned is that pretty much all high school is relatively the same. Like when we would talk at our meetings, we'd all have pretty much the same problems and the same ideas about everything. So that's mainly what I learned from it. Yeah.
I truly learned from being with the other presidents acceptance and like friendliness. Like walking into that first meeting, I thought everybody was gonna be like, "Who's this guy? Who's this new guy?" But I felt very welcomed, like I've known them for a long while, and it was really cool to experience that in the first meeting.
Kudos.
Being the only girl in the group, I look up to these guys because they're like fearless. I mean, I feel like guys like could say anything and still get away with it because they're just so nice. But they're really strong and passionate at their schools. Like I see when they talk about it, they just light up, and it really inspires me to be bold, just like them. They're not afraid, and they inspired me a lot. So.
I see the confidence and like there is leadership at other schools in all of our POSD district, and how we're all like striving to make a difference in all of our communities, and it's just, yeah.
One thing that I see, it might sound a little cliche, but it's like the important factor of teamwork, because we're able to sit in those meetings and we're all like individual leaders, but when we talk together and we kind of just bounce different ideas around, and that idea ended up getting like perfected by the end of the meeting just because we all had our different spins on it that ended up, you know, making a really good idea out of it. So it's really important for teamwork, especially with these group of people. You know, they've really changed my life. It's been great working with them.
I feel like I've learned a lot about reaching out to others. It can sometimes feel like other schools are a little bit farther away, even though we're all in the same district. But I realize that it's very important to kind of reach out and explore other options. I know we reached out to Kellis for the black lights for one of our assemblies and stuff like that. And we worked together all very well in order to make the events at our respective schools go off so much better. Without kind of the Peoria Unified School District, it would be a lot harder for our schools to function. Yeah, I realized a lot about like synergy and working together, and that was a great experience working with these guys and gal.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And I couldn't have said it better myself, Mr. Sandoval. And so what I'll leave you is with the challenge. You all mentioned the passion to serve your community. So I challenge you to come back to the very community that has given you so much, to come back and help influence those that fall behind you. So congratulations, and I look forward to seeing more.
Mrs. Martinez, before we transition, it is so fabulous when we have young people come and share their experiences with us, because that's why we do what we do. And I gotta say, this group of young people, and I bet every older person in the room would agree, gives you hope for the future, doesn't it? It's amazing. Thank you for that. Thank you.
We would like to present a gift to Dr. Stifler and Miss Erin.
Just with this gift, we really want to thank Miss Airy just for putting everything together. I don't know how she does it. She works magic or something. And also Dr. Stifler for being the leader of those meetings and kind of inspiring us to do what we do in our schools. So thank you.
Keep the secret that I said you were my favorite meeting when I meant to say the governing board.
So much. I appreciate that. How touching. How about one more big round of applause for these students? Well, I'll tell you, our last meeting together was actually just this week, and one of the things we asked these students before we conclude is how did we help prepare you for whatever it is that's next, and you heard them share what's next for them. But I think one of the most important takeaways that one of them mentioned, and then many of them agreed on, is who you hire in this district matters. And they said, keep hiring the teachers that are inspiring us to do what we do. They mentioned their advisors, they mentioned their administration as being so important in the work that they do on their campuses. So that was, I think, was a huge takeaway for us on the significance of hiring others that are supporting these students. So just a big thank you to all of you for what you do and for your feedback. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aries. And any more staff recognitions?
May I share? Push the button, Darwin. May I share a few?
Please.
Let me zoom. Nathan Manny, a junior at Liberty, earned the opportunity to attend press day at the University of Phoenix Stadium to cover the teams involved in the Final Four games. Pretty darn cool. During this time, Nathan was able to interview the players and coaches involved, watch practices, and learn from national media members. Nathan has a passion for journalism and excels in the journalism program at Liberty. Congratulations, Nathan. We just learned that the Peoria Unified School District received a Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, more finally called CAFR, ending in fiscal year 2016. We know how extremely hard our budget and finance department works to provide accurate reporting, all while being financially transparent. Congratulations. It's an incredible burden, and they do awesome. And as you may recall from the last board meeting, Cactus High School's robotics club, the Cobra Commanders, were headed to the World Championship. Unfortunately, they did not take the big win, but they made it to the semifinals, and we are still extremely proud of them. I'm tripping over myself because what I want to tell you is Bechtel, the giant construction company, sponsored them and said, hey, we want to sponsor you bigger, and could we build you a facility that other people could come and train how to be as good a robot? And so we're figuring out how to say yes to that. Yeah. That's pretty darn awesome. Pretty darn awesome. It's also not bad when someone from another school says, those Cactus kids were so great in helping us as we're learning to be a robotics club. It's not in my script, but I'm telling you, all that happened. Congratulations to our elementary school's basketball and softball champions. For basketball, in the turquoise division, Pioneer defeated Cheyenne, and in the copper division, Coyote Hills defeated Frontier. For boys softball, in the turquoise division, Desert Harbor defeated Saguaro Ranch, and in the copper division, Zuni Hills defeated Oakwood. And finally, we have the all-district recognition taking place at the district office this week for boys volleyball, softball, and baseball at the high school level. Thank you, Mrs. Connect, for helping with that, and that's a wonderful thing as well. Here endeth my report.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 6, board recognitions. Ms. Doan.
I don't have anything this week.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, so this week, right? The volunteer recognition celebration. We had the opportunity to attend, and I know we talk about the many touch points and verticals within our district of those that truly inspire and put our students in a position to be successful throughout college, career, and life. And certainly those volunteers are invaluable assets to this district. And Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong, over 3,500 volunteers across the district that we celebrated on that day. So it was an honor and just very rewarding, inspiring to see, hear some of the stories of those that were, called out. But I just want to think if there are any volunteers in here, but certainly thank you once again to all those individuals who spend time, their own time, serving, our district, our students and staff, continuing our tradition of excellence. Thank you.
Mrs. Connect.
Thank you, ma'am. I was going to mention the baseball and softball today. Mr. Sievertson, I don't think he's here tonight, does an awesome job. And that's such a great opportunity because we are not just recognizing the athletic ability of all of our teams, but also how that interfaces with their academic achievements. So that's really fabulous, and his interns are so incredibly helpful. Thank you for mentioning the volunteer appreciation, Mr. Sandoval. And here's a little story for you. Some of you, a lot of you remember when Mr. McCord was on our board. His wife is Mary Lynn McCord. And she's remained quite active with our foundation and with the PBSN Joe McCord Radio Scholarship. So last year's awardee, Sedona, from what school is she? Liberty. She got a gig working with Dave Pratt, the radio guy. And so all this year, she's been working with, during her own show, with the support of other PBSN students on a show called Teen Talk. Well, Mrs. McCord got invited to see Sedona's last day. And she asked me, Mrs. McCord asked me to be her date. Well, we went thinking we were just going to walk, and we ended up on the radio. And so we got to say wonderful things about PBSN, PSBN, excuse me, I say that all the time. I'm always thinking of peanut butter, I guess. So we got to say wonderful things about the district and about the program and certainly about those individual kids. It was a surprise, but it was a lot of fun. It was really great.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ms. Connect. And so recognitions, I always try to spread my wings to learn as fast as I can, and the first thing I had the opportunity to do was sign up for Peoria Leadership Institute. Our city of Peoria hosts one time a year a series of 9-week courses to help develop leadership. It goes over city management, and what I went to last night was a home run. It was the community outreach that the city of Peoria offers our students and our community members. Free library downloads for books, and there are culture pass. You can check it out, and there are free activities to go to museums and the science center, and so home run for a city that I love living in. And so I want to acknowledge John Sefton. He is the community service administrator. They have a ton of volunteer activities, students, a great opportunity to reach out to them. And so I look forward to continue to support their efforts and how we can help out, continue that leadership together. Today I had another opportunity to visit Sunrise Mountain High School with Vice Mayor John Edwards, as well as the American Post 62, to talk about serving and leadership to the student government. So I look forward to come visiting the rest of the high schools. 3 down, 4 more to go. And it's all about talking about how do you continue to serve. And I wanted to give a shout out to Vice Mayor John Edwards for taking the time out of his busy day to reach out to our students. So thank you, and I appreciate all that you guys do and our advisors, so thank you. Excellent. At this time is usually when the audience decides to stay or goes to eat dinner. Thank you so much. All right, we'll keep moving. Number 7, request to address the governing board regarding matters not included on the agenda. Do we have any slips? Excellent, moving right along. Number 8, address the agenda and consider adoption of recommended changes by the governing board. Next, number 9. Oh.
If no one makes a motion, we can just move on. Mm-hmm. That's not, it doesn't say adoption. Oh, it does say adoption. I'm sorry.
I apologize.
We could change that. We'll talk about that later in the agenda.
I will move that we adopt the agenda as stated.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to leave the agenda as is. It's a voting option.
We can just change the way that's worded.
The motion passes. Moving on, number 9, consideration of recommendation for the appointment of the Chief Academic Support Officer.
All right. Good evening, Ms. Ahal Martinez, members of the board, and Dr. Stifler. It's with great pleasure tonight that I get to come up and bring to you a candidate that has gone through a strenuous interview process, a process that we're proud of. And also, I thank you for going through the process as well and recognizing her and hopefully giving us that vote tonight as well. So we thank you very much. And please note, as we heard earlier, this hire does matter, okay? So tonight, I recommend to you Dr. Kendra Bell, that she be appointed to the position of Chief Academic Support Officer. Dr. Bell has a strong, proven, and diverse background within instructional leadership and supervision, previously serving in the role of Director of Elementary Leadership, Associate Superintendent of Curriculum, Instruction, and Student Services, Executive Director of School Improvement, Director of Assessment and Accountability, and Principal within the Tucson Unified School District and North Kansas City Schools. Dr. Bell currently serves as coach to principals in the Glendale Elementary School District and has done so for the past 3 years. Dr. Kendra Bell holds a superintendent certificate through the state of Arizona. She earned her doctorate in urban leadership and policy studies and a master's of educational administration from University of Missouri, Kansas City, and a bachelor's degree from University of Missouri, Columbia. Dr. Bell also received an honorary distinction of dissertation award and was a Teacher of the Year recipient through the Kansas City Chiefs organization. So with that all being said, I guess I stand for, I don't know, Dr. Stifler, perhaps a vote, or do we simply recommend Dr. Bell?
I would recommend that, well, actually, I would amend this, and I would say that the administration strongly recommends Dr. Bell, and that further that she be approved and that she be compelled to come to the microphone to answer some questions and tell us more.
Very good.
Thank you very much. And so at this time, may we please have Ms. Dr. Bell come to the,
do we
vote first?
Well, I thought we had to grill her first.
I would prefer you didn't, but you may do as you.
Okay, do we have a motion?
They want to talk to her first.
Okay.
Okay. Dr. Bell, please come on up.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So again, welcome, and we are excited to finally meet you. It's been a big conversation with the governing board and the district administration. We'll go ahead and start off with Ms. Judy Doan.
Hi.
Hi.
It is very exciting. So can you give me your basic philosophy on the support you will provide as you're going to be the Chief Academic Support Officer? That's a big title. That's a lot of work. So can you just boil it down to me, your understanding of what you're going to do?
This particular role in a school district has a great deal to do with leadership in designing the work in this department, specifically a well-articulated pre-K-12 curriculum, an assessment plan, and I know we need to work on a benchmark assessment plan. Specifically, we look also and support our schools in the use of data to guide instruction and what that would look like in terms of working with our schools and professional learning communities, working with them also in terms of common formative assessments and offering support there. In this role also, I'd be working with student services and special education. With that, we would, I've already talked to the superintendent, so I know we need to look very carefully in that particular service model. We do have some changes at the state level with ESSA in terms of state accountability, the A through F system. And so we would begin to look at our programs and services to try to capture school improvement initiatives that we would include in our application to the state. So that would be something that would be done, I think, in the first 8 months or so. Also, I do know that this school district, and it's very close to my heart, being from North Kansas City, embraces technology and is working on the one-to-one initiative in high schools. And so designing and being a part of all of that is very exciting curriculum work for me.
Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, thank you. So clearly you've gone through a pretty complete, robust process to get to where you are today. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
My question would be more in and around, you've held a few positions and seem to have acclimated well into those environments, have been very successful. That said, I mean, when you join a new environment, if you will, a new workforce, when you take a look at, your success and how you acclimate into those environments, what do you feel has been your I guess, most promising and certainly effective tactic in doing so and acclimating into those new environments?
Well, school districts are entities that work with people. And so building those relationships first and foremost, and really trying to understand where people are within the system and what they bring to the table. So I come from a strengths-based approach in North Kansas City, and I have taken that approach and have applied that to most all of my experiences as an administrator. So I look for that in people. Also, as a part of a strengths-based association, we actually try to capture the top 5 strengths on a team, and then we put teams together to really support one another through the identification of each individual's strengths. So that kind of teaming that's deliberate and intentional helps us all be better at what we do.
Perfect, thank you.
Mrs. Connect?
I'll build on that. I'm very interested in strengths-based leadership. So tell us a little bit about you personally. What are your strengths that you bring to PUSD?
Okay. You what?
Just straight up question.
Oh, I thought
That's
you
me.
said one. My first is strategic, so I have the tendency to, when decisions are made, to look for what's going to probably happen with that decision. And age helps with that also. I am an achiever, a maximizer, and an arranger. That's kind of type A in terms of just that push. And that's probably why I love school improvement and that constant desire to be excellent, status quo, or just sitting back and accepting that our kids do well isn't really good enough for me. So I'm very interested in those kinds of signature programs that take a district to the next level, like partnerships with community colleges, IB, those kinds of things. And I've been a part of all of that in the past.
Very exciting. Well, we look forward to watching you shine.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again for joining us and going forward. First, I want to acknowledge our district administration and Dr. Stifler. I know that we gave you the governing board authority to proceed with this new position, but thus far I am impressed, and it's important that we highlight your strengths because that's what's going to get us through this next few years and hopefully successful years. One thing I liked about looking at who you stand for is your ability to coach administration. We have great structure and moving forward with teaching and coaching our teachers, but what is your plan on helping administrators?
Well, I'm not sure exactly, and I'll learn more from the superintendent in terms of that. The last 3 years, that has been my role. I was assigned in Glendale to lower performing schools and their principals in order to kind of assess what needs to happen at the school and within the leader and leadership team. And so through that coaching and building those relationships, that's going to be the hardest thing for me to transition away from. But it's also extremely rewarding. One of those schools that has been a D school for years, we just got an interim principal in there last year, and they came up to a C-. We're on a trajectory with our benchmark that looks like great gains will be made there. And that's about the staff coming together, working together, building on each other's strengths and being very intentional about their instructional calendars, creative about what's delivered to students in the classroom. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for a B+ this year.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, so at this time, do we have a motion?
Mrs. Martinez, I move to approve the hiring of Dr. Bell.
I second that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am going to sneak out to go to my second board meeting in Glendale tonight. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Governing board members, Dr. Stifler, before Kendra leaves, we also want to highlight the fact that she has a high level of support. So tonight she brought with her husband, Doug, and I just wanted to tell him thank you for coming and welcome to the family as well.
Thank you.
Doug.
I forgot about him. I guess I was a little nervous.
Excellent. Moving on to number 10, discussion and consideration of adoption of a governing board resolution opposing expansion of empowerment scholarship accounts.
Martinez, members of the board. The passage of Senate Bill 1314. Thank you, Mrs. Stone. The passage of Senate Bill 1314 was passed by the legislature and expands Empower scholarship accounts beginning in 2017-2018. This law is an indirect conflict with the Arizona School Boards Association political agenda and a blow to the K-12 public schools. Arizona School Boards Association recommends that each member governing board consider adopting the resolution that's now on the screen, opposing the law and urging reconsideration and appeal. And I'm sorry, I printed it so I didn't have all the words there. This is the resolution as presented. Governing boards all across the state have been addressing this over the last several weeks, and as requested, it is brought forward before you for approval.
Thank you very much. And do we have any discussion?
Yes.
Mrs. Doan.
Education is necessary. And in any civilized country, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. In this country, it is not only a necessity for our students, for our citizens, to be able to have every opportunity to take care of themselves, to go ahead and prosper in every way possible. It is not only all of that, it is also mandatory, compulsory, if you will. I'm an American. I believe in free market. We're a good school district. I don't think we have to be afraid of competition. In a free market, everybody does their best, and the clients get to choose. I believe in choice. And our school district doesn't have to be afraid of that. When the money is put out, and I know of some areas where school districts, there are massive problems, and I know that some poorer students in lower economic sections would like a chance to go to a private school or get out of the situation they're in. I believe in school choice. I believe that this opportunity is not something that we need to turn down or turn our nose up at for disadvantaged people and for people that simply need a different choice. I believe in choice. I don't believe in monopolies.
Thank you. Mr. Sandoval?
Thank you. So, I guess my take on this is this. Well, our role as a PUSD governing board is specific to the Peoria Unified School District. I also feel that, we have an opportunity to impact, our state in this regard. By voicing our opinion on this Senate bill that, as you take a look at the details and what it could potentially do with, negatively impacting, certainly, the funding within our public schools. So that said, anytime, we're in a situation where we continue to take away or be potentially put in a situation where we are lessening our resources in a climate where resources are very thin in our private, in the public school structure, I'm certainly not for. I think the other side is, when we take a look at, the schools that these ESAs would certainly benefit, these are institutions that, quite frankly, don't truly uphold the promise of public schools, which again is our mantra of every student every day, regardless of what zip code you live in, and quite frankly, the public school system has a long history and knowledge to be able to serve the diversity that exists within our communities and be able to adapt to the the shifting needs of its student population. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Connect?
I can shine some light on the genesis of this proposed resolution. After the adoption of the signing of the Empowerment Scholarship Account, SB 1431, there was a huge outcry from public education advocates, parents, and of course school board members from across the state. And they reached out to the association to which we belong and said, what can we do? And so the Arizona School Boards Association developed a resolution to provide for its member school boards an opportunity to take a public stand. And the thinking behind it, and I could read all the whereases here, but the gist of it is that like Mr. Sandoval says, we as school board members, our charge and the code of ethics that we signed says that our first priority is to the students and by extension the family and the community within the Peoria Unified School District. We feel an obligation to protect the interests of the 37,000 kids who attend our schools, and also as school board members and members of the association, there are 1.1 million school kids that attend district schools that are counting on the grown-ups in their lives to look out for them. The Empowerment Scholarship Account takes money out of the general fund that could otherwise be used to fund our teachers, fund our facilities, and they're going, in many cases, and this is all outlined in the proposal that we adopt, going to families that maybe are already affluent, already using private schools. Our Constitution says that should not happen. The Arizona Constitution says that public money should not go to private institutions or to sectarian, you can read that as religious schools. So that is our Constitution. I think that our founders here of Arizona definitely had the right idea. We are 48th in funding. We have the worst teacher pay conditions in the country. This moves us in the opposite direction, in the wrong direction. When I believe, and when we wanted to believe that what the governor said, that he was committed to moving us in the right direction to supporting public schools, this goes in the opposite direction and takes funding and resources away. Mrs. Doan, I agree with what you're saying about choice. We have exceptional unrivaled choice within this school district. And by taking away from the school and putting it in other areas, we actually are doing more of a disservice to the students within our school district who are choosing our STEM program, or our arts program, or our leadership program, or our CTE programs, or our traditional program. We have choice here in PUSD, and I resist anything that would diminish our ability to serve our population.
Well, if they want to choose, they can choose here. It doesn't take anything away from us if they don't leave.
It takes money away from us.
The money goes with the student. So if we get the students.
I disagree.
With that clarification, Mr. Hicks, can you explain or shed some light on that statement about ESAs and funding for all of us, please?
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, so what I think I hear was, can I explain the difference of funding that's been out there that they would receive and how it would take money away? Well, an ESA student will get more money than what the state is paying the Peoria district. And so what that does is somebody has to make up the difference. That is, the general fund makes up the difference. So the general fund will pay more money to a student that's in ESA than to a public school or to our Peoria school district, which means that it will erode the resources, which means there is less and less resources for the rest of us to split. So yes, it is an increase in the cost of the general fund, which will be borne by all that are still in the general fund.
And if I may add to that, a student whose family was paying tuition, who was not taking advantage of an ESA and now has the opportunity to do so, was not taking that $5,000 or $6,000 out of the general fund and now may be doing it. And that is not something that I believe the JLBC actually calculated, but is a factor that should be considered.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other comments about that fact?
No.
Okay. I am 1/5 of the vote. I was raised by this very district, a public school district. I have 2 little boys who are going to be products of this district. And we have 42 wonderful schools, and sometimes and 42, 43, however you look at it. People choose us, and we know that because the last board meeting, we were here very late because we have a lot of people up north who choose those schools. We have people that choose on variances down south. It is our job as a governing board. We are elected by constituents in our community to represent our community.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, it is important that we protect their interests, and that is most of the kids in our district attend Peoria Unified School District. And if you look at each LD, 20, 21, 22, if given the choice, over 85 to 90% choose Peoria, and it depends on each LD, a legislative district that that you're looking at. There are opportunities if people want to choose. The problem I have with ESAs is, one, the special needs. I believe that parents don't always have the full education, and so by throwing another choice doesn't mean that it's going to get the best result for that child. We have excellent special ed programs here, and though we're not perfect, we have pretty good results. And as you can see, we have students coming in drones every board meeting presenting how awesome they are. And we hear stories and emails, and so those are the students we represent. And if we're really here on this governing board to represent those students, then this is not a question if we're taking dollars away from them. If we want to talk about our teachers that we represent, there should be no justification why any teacher should qualify for state assistance. And by taking this money out, you're taking away or giving them the opportunity or lack of to support their own family who have children who go to our districts, and ultimately it's a domino effect. And so if I have anything to say, I represent the Peoria Unified School District, and I believe that this is the choice people want in our community. And that's all I have to say.
Mrs. Martinez, I move to approve the resolution.
I second that. All right. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to the next action item. Budget update and consideration
I
of,
believe we're on number 11,
oh, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Second reading and consideration of adoption of proposed changes to policy Gcqc, resignation of professional staff members.
All right, again, good evening, governing board members. Dr. Stifler, I'm here tonight on behalf of administration for our second reading of the proposed changes to policy Gcqc, and that, of course, was the conversation and policy that details liquidated damages. So tonight on the screen are the changes that we had proposed from the last meeting, and again, that were put together through a variety of conversations from the governing board, our association leadership, as well as administration here. So I'd just like to highlight those two highlighted areas. The first one that is a new exception to liquidated damages is the advancement to a position of higher pay, increased responsibility, and or at a level reasonably considered to be higher organizationally than the individual's previous position. And then we also added this statement there in the second large paragraph that says such waiver may be contingent upon the availability of a certified or administrative staff member who is qualified as a replacement. So again, this is us bringing this back as a second read, and at this point in time, administration recommends that you approve this policy as it was changed and as written.
Thank you. And for discussion, Mrs. Connect?
This is just wrenching for me. Wrenching for me. Has been since the first time we passed it. It is so conflicting. And I guess I'm just pouring my heart out to my fellow board members. I don't know what the right path is on this. I feel great compassion for our teachers who have served us. I feel great angst about the administration that has to deal with employees that might be leaving. I don't know. I have no guidance to offer. Maybe someone else should start. I don't know what the right path. I generally have a strong feeling one way or another about the right thing to do, even when it's not the easy thing to do. But I don't know what is right in this case. I do not know.
Mr. Sandoval?
So I'll say this. As I sit up here, and really wake up every day, my unwavering commitment is certainly to the 37,000 students here within our district and our staff. That said, one of the things that I benefited from throughout career is the ability to grow professionally, without repercussion, where I've advanced, even if I left one corporation to another, certainly without putting them in a bad spot. Always left, under good terms. So, I know as a district, we have a commitment to, creating a very positive, inspiring work environments for, all members, all the 4,000, staff members that we have here within PUSD. So, for me, it's, I think we need to celebrate, those individuals who are of high caliber, who wish to further their careers, professionally. And I realize that at times means that, they may move to another district or even higher education. But again, if it doesn't put us in a bad position, meaning our kids in a bad spot. So, that said, I think actions speak louder than words. I think it's, it will continue this language. So, and again, thank you for taking the time. I think this language continues to, support, that culture that we strive for every day, which is motivating, inspiring our teachers and staff.
So, Mr. Sandoval, are you saying that this addition of being exempt from the waiver, or from the liquidated damages, if there's advancement, does that satisfy your concerns that you had? Or what are you saying?
So I guess for me, again, I mean, advancement, I think could be translated, in many ways, but I think it from an individual perspective, from a professional perspective, it means to me growing professionally. If we become a pipeline, because of the knowledge that they've obtained, by working here in the district, not only, are we, showing them that we, celebrate their want to grow, but, I think it also becomes an individual that becomes a very positive, certainly billboard, for the district, in times of, attraction and retention. These individuals are out there in the community. If they, do take a position in the education department at Arizona State, I mean, as those new students ask questions around what district they came from, I would like them to say PUSD is the right district for you because they treat you well, they respect you, and they value you. So to answer your question, I mean, it does, but again, I'm going to continue to say as long as it doesn't put our kids in a tough spot. So here's what I would say very quickly. Today, and I apologize, you guys know me by now. I'll go in full circle. Now, I promise I'll get to my point. Right now, our teachers are asked to sign their contracts for the subsequent school year 5 weeks earlier. So they're already in contract for the subsequent year. They're under current contract in the current year. So they're, and we have a high retention rate. So where I'm headed is, even if we didn't have this, and I don't have data to prove it, but I am confident that if we didn't have a liquidated damages clause, I think our retention rate, because we hang our hat and believe in the fact that we do treat all of our associates in a respectable and valuable way, that our retention rate would be as it is today. That said, I do feel where an individual does put us in a tough spot, that there should be repercussion. I mean, that happens in the private sector as well. So I guess and what I don't, the message that I don't want to have out there in light of the fact that there's really kind of no gap in their contracts is I don't want there to be a feel that they're held hostage as it relates to being able to grow professionally.
Okay, here's the thing. What if you have an opportunity like this, advancement, but there's nobody to cover, and yet your neighbor has an opportunity and somebody can cover for them, and then they get no damages, you don't get the raise, you don't get the job, and you get damages. That's not fair to the person that is not allowed to go. It seems unequal to me. I think our current policy is equal, and we can revisit the amount of assessed damages at contract time. But at this point, what if, two people want to leave and one person has someone to cover their class, they're able to go ahead and get that promotion and everything. If this other person wants to leave, they have to pay these liquidated damages because there's nobody there to cover. That's unfair to the person that does not, and this is not contingent upon them. They have no control over somebody coming in and taking their class or not. So then they're not able to take advantage of this new wording, and it's a slap in their face. Just because somebody's not there to take their class, they don't get the advantage. I don't think that's fair.
May I?
Yeah.
So one aspect of this that I struggle with is this is intended to be a tool for retention, correct? I don't think that's the way we want to retain our employees.
Well, mid-year. It's only a mid-year retention tool, basically, once you've signed the contract.
At this point, I'll jump in. I was obviously an employee of the district. I appreciate all you guys' work, and I know you're listening to our comments and our staff's comments.
We're giving you no help again.
Exactly. But I lived it. I had to make a choice. and decide, do I wait out my contract or do I face these liquidated damages? We all agree, and I just said, we are here for the kids. And when a teacher, for whatever reason, even if it is an excuse, we're affecting lives here, children that depend on us. Not to mention, we have a shortage, a substitute issue. And so when we're looking at our great retention rate that we're doing, it's still, when we have to deal with these situations, now we're putting a long-term sub, if we can get one. If they haven't used all the time by the we get to this time period, splitting up those kids possibly in certain scenarios, and the quality of teacher. And I did have, I had that tough monologue, internal monologue about we push the terms of the contract so early now. So how can we make this a fair market for the teachers to have choice? When we're talking about choice, how do we make that fair? But the industry of education, this is dog-eat-dog world right now, and all the districts are moving to this time frame. We, as a governing board, did as much as we could and gave them an early signing contract, stipend of $250, I believe. So we've acknowledged that we appreciate their commitment to signing it early, but we are in a profession of teaching children. And when you walk out, that is a tough, tough consequence for those students that need a teacher. I think that the original policy has ways of teachers and staff and administrators to look at getting around those, for lack of a better term. I believe that we've already signed the contracts for this year, and changing the amount is not good for our district. But going forward, this is definitely going forward for the following contract year, we talk about reducing. If we compare ourselves to other districts, $2,500 is quite steep. And as I mentioned, it's about two months' salary for a net take-home pay for one individual, and can definitely impact, and we don't want to impact their children. So with that being said, if they have an advancement in career, there's probably a higher salary that goes with that advancement. And if they truly care about kids and impacting their peers and the education world, at this point, the policy, I believe, does just that.
Right.
With the changes.
Right. Without the changes,
without the
as is. The policy as is.
So I'll leave you with this, Dr. Carter Davidson. And again, thank you again for doing this. I mean, I don't disagree, obviously with the liquidated damages. If an individual does put us in a tough spot, when we, again, kids are always top of mind. The classroom. For me, it's, I've always, talked about the emotional currency of our staff. Again, showing that, we certainly do value them and want to celebrate, their advancements. So I know a lot of districts are certainly taking on the policy of earlier signings of those contracts, and unfortunately it does become a tactic to retain. But again, I think if we are confident in as a district that we do create very positive work environments, that's a tactic that I don't think we need to integrate into our system. So for me, I appreciate the time spent on this. I think it still protects, our students, and I think it, in the same breath, I think it further supports the fact that as a district, we value and certainly respect our staff. So that said, I know this is an actionable item. I don't know, sorry, Monica, I don't know if you want to ask if others have questions or.
Any other comments?
I'm still not clear, Mr. Sandoval, if you support the changes, if you do not.
I do, sorry, but I was waiting for the prompt.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, no more discussion?
So the changes would keep the existing policy in place with just the items
Highlighted.
added in yellow.
Right.
Which I think really the only substantive change is that there, presents a little more leniency in there, correct?
It does.
Correct.
Which I am leaning towards supporting, but let me just warn you, Mr. Sandoval, that when the individuals come to request a waiver, it's very difficult. And I think the more clarity in the conditions, the less likely we are to have appeals.
So are you recommending clearer language? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I'm not. I don't know. I have expressed my difficulty with this topic.
I know that this was used as a retention tool, but I think with our new superintendent and our new structure, I believe that retention is going to automatically build upon your guys' leadership. So that's going to come twofold when you guys impact in that relationship that you guys believe, that you guys continue with. My other concern is we want cream of the crop choice for teachers. And if we give a teacher a situation where she signs her contract, or he or a staff member, and it comes July 1st, all the other districts have done their hiring, and then though the school is not impacting the children at the time, whatever's left, then that's what Peoria is picking out of. And if we're truly about every child, every student, we need cream of the crop. And at this point, as much as I hate to say it, but I stayed in this district and wrote out my contract, and this was a deterrent so that my family wouldn't have to suffer and my students wouldn't have to suffer. And so, just to reiterate, we want to take care of our kids.
But devil's advocate, sometimes a worst-case scenario is having a teacher in the classroom that really doesn't want to be there.
And there are medical scenarios that allow that. So you could go to a physician and say, I just physically can't do it. I'm emotionally drained, and that goes straight to the HR there's a policy that puts it in place to do that. It's as easily as getting a doctor's note. And who are we to say that is the reason? But we're here for our kids.
So there's a loophole. Is that what you're saying?
There is, but I'm just saying.
There's always a loophole.
I'll support the recommendation, but I would just want to reiterate, this should be our very last tool when it comes to retaining our teachers, right? I mean, I know we're all working towards higher salaries. We want to work on other morale issues, support, autonomy, all those things that are really important. This should be a last resort. Our ultimate goal is that every teacher in this country wants to work in PUSD and stay forever. That's our goal.
Yep, I hope there's a time when we can get rid of the policy altogether, and we'll have an influx of educators, and I know we'll be the first choice always, but that we won't have to deal with this crisis.
Absolutely.
That being said.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That being said, I move to approve the adoption of the proposed changes to policy Gcqc.
I'll second.
Thank you.
The motion fails
Motion fails
to carry.
to carry.
So the original policy stands.
So the original policy stands. Thank you. Right, moving on to the next item, budget update, consideration of approval of compensation recommendations for the 2017-2018 school year. Time is flying.
Good evening, Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Darwin Stifler, colleagues, and community members. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to present tonight. So I'm going to present the hard work of our budget team, the results of what our budget team has gone through this fiscal year, and our recommendation. We'll go through quickly through the budget process, explain where we are, how we got there, review the recommendations, and then also there was some alternative budget recommendations at the very end as part of it. Just as a remember, for the governing board, we started, I think, explaining the process in September, to hopefully trying to layer in additional amounts of communication. We also increased the membership, so we now have 20 members, 9 certified, 6 classified, 5 administrative. I think that's actually worked out really well. The new members have provided a lot of additional insight, and so I think that's pretty good. We started, historically, we always start in December. We did that again. We added a monthly budget agenda to the governing board member meeting, so you would have somebody from the budget team would get up every month to just give a little update about what they last talked about and to give an opportunity for the board to give any input or question. We also, this year, we did not have a compensation committee, so we had the budget team kind of assume those responsibilities. And we always look at different things, but we talk about the different revenues and expense variables as part of the process, and we look at anything and everything. So the goal is to try to be as transparent as possible and create an open environment that's safe to bring up anything. And so the new members, maybe not as much, just because they don't know what they don't know, but anybody can that's on the team. And although they were all invited, we have 1. I thought we had 2, and 5. Half of the team said they had other commitments. That other half, I did not hear a response back. So thank you, Michelle, for representing everybody here. There is the budget team, but they actually were great, not just during the meetings, but sending emails, questions, how this is, learning a little bit, and so they've done a really good job. There are a couple recommendations to the process that the team had, and one is to start the process earlier. Felt like they had a lot of things to say and do, but now as you're getting later in the budget season and everything, prompting them and trying to push really hard, like, hey, we got to finish up. But there was a lot of just good conversation, so they'd like to begin the process earlier. And then this was something we talked about as we eliminated our benefit trust board, which is to bring the benefits portion in more detail into the budget team process, which dovetails into starting the process earlier, because we'll start earlier. We'll start looking at some experience reports, some other history, and some of those recommendations, and we'll dovetail that into the budget team as well. The budget recommendations, so we're going off of the assumption that the funding will be increasing by our inflation rate. And so here is just the budget summary document that we use, that I use and they see. And that is to try to just be as transparent as possible. And this is the summary page. There's tabs for almost every line that's in here to explain it. The top is what do we see for revenue. So we make the assumption is do we have an ADM, so an average daily membership. So the number of students that the budget is based on. Is that changing? You could even see at the very top upper left, the inflation increase is 1.25%. So we try to spell out as much as possible as where is the money coming from. So you can see that brings out about $2.1 million that we have to look at. Then each tab underneath there is our health benefits. Each line has a separate tab and represents a different thing that's happening. And so I will go through the recommendations. We'll hit all that. So one was to continue all the staffing models. So we have staffing models based on number of students, for class size, for specials, for front office, for everything in that sense. And so the assumption as we brought back where we are, where the budget is, was all based on that assumption. So that's going to continue. That was recommended to continue. The second was to provide for a 1% base pay increase to all employee groups. This does not include stipends. So this is just their base pay, all groups, and we had a considerable discussion on this. This was one that we spent a lot of time on, which was, what is the goal of the group? And so the budget team, we spent a couple meetings just going over what is our philosophy, and 2 things that brought forward on that. The number 1 goal was to increase compensation, and 1% was our goal, and the second was to provide the same amount to everybody. And that, I think we had this conversation with the board here, which was when you have a very little bit to distribute, and then we're talking about it, it doesn't make it easier. And so there were a few comments that mentioned that Because this is really just a cost of living inflation, we really should be applying that to everybody. This isn't a lot of extra new money that we would have more time to cut up and look at other things. The second is because of Prop 206, and the next two lines are about Prop 206. Prop 206 was the minimum wage law that was passed in November, and you can see that's going to cost about $776,000 to the district. The recommendation was to not provide an increase to those that are at 1049 and below, since they'll all be coming up to 1050 in January, and to wait until January for the minimum wage increases to be implemented. Next was a recommendation was to provide certified contingency. So there are 8 additional staffing. So these are people we're not hiring at this point, but it goes through the process when our educational services people meet and they're looking at numbers. They start the process next week, I believe, and start looking at actuals. So as actuals are coming in, we were doing everything based on projected. As numbers are moving around, sometime if there's increases, we could see if there's an increase that we're seeing in overall students, but if there's not an increase in overall students, then how are you paying for the position? This allows for 8 positions already embedded into the budget that they can increase and add without having to look at the revenue side of it for that standpoint. The second was, the next recommendation is special ed reduction. And so working with the special ed department, looking at areas for efficiencies or reductions, and this has the elimination of 2 contracted positions, 1 special ed technician that's vacant, and 5 itinerant aides, and they're all vacant, so they look for areas that had minimal impact on staff and minimal impact on services. So these are positions that we were not able to fill, and so it was release those, go back into budget capacity, and so we could re-spend those dollars doing something else, and that was their solution. This is something we've talked about at other board meetings. There was a huge increase in utility costs that has come down from the $200,000 down to about $49,000. So we're putting in for that increase, but at the same time, we also working with vendor Autonomics through an SRP and APS grant are getting that software placed throughout the entire district, and it now it's not fully implemented right now, but we're rolling it out. They've collected baseline data, but it will take every laptop, every desktop, and we'll start automatically shutting them off at a time to start saving energy and utilities. I think they, I believe it was, they told us it'd save about $35,000, but we wanted to back it down since a lot of times vendors have pie in the sky and you're going to save everything in the world. We want to take it. But we are saying we're going to save about $25,000 in utilities just from implementing this software.
Mrs. Martinez? Mr. Hicks, schools were an intervener in the Corporation Commission, the rate hike case, were they not?
Correct.
And was that a group of education groups, or how did that work?
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, there is a requirement that the schools be represented at the rate case. Tim Hogan is the elected official, not elected official, he's the official that this is really—
Fled our case.
That's a separate issue on inflation, but he is the person that goes to the rate cases. And I wouldn't say that it's all districts elect him, but they go to all the associations and say, do you have a problem with Tim Hogan? So then they send out a notice to school business people saying, Tim Hogan will be our appointed. Does anybody have any problem with that?
So he pled the case for schools should be exempt from that hike, or how did that work?
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, he is there during the rate case and he represents us, so at any point that he will interject and make a case for that. I don't know his exact stance if he said to exempt schools completely. The APS case specifically, they initially had a 6% increase and it came down to the 2%. I still don't believe they've ruled on that. I have not seen any notification that there's been a final ruling on that, but that was the recommendation change, is to bring it back down to 2%.
So this reflects that?
This reflects the 2% increase.
So we're hoping that that's what it looks like in the end.
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, I think this is what we're projecting. I hope that there's nothing.
Yeah, okay.
I've said a lot of comments about APS's increase. At this point, this has a net of all utility costs. You have APS projected, negotiated down to 2%. We have a discount. SRP for a period of time is cutting our rates. And so you have this diversity of We have about 60% of our schools are APS and 40% are SRP. I would hope it's nothing. I would hope that they intervene or they look at it and say, wow, there's a lot of additional requests in here just to collect money for what purpose in that sense. And so, so my hope would be that there's nothing.
Okay.
We expect it to be at around the 49,000.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Continuing, one is support professional growth. So during the process, staff, I think it's by the end of January, are required to submit all their hours, fill out the paperwork so that we know how much it is for the next year. I believe it was in around 150-ish thousand more, 175,000, and so that is supported and request for our professional growth, so we're going to continue to support that. Maintain the capital allocation from previous year, fiscal year. The difficulty there, just as a reminder, all schools and departments have been cut 55% of their budget, so this will be the third year in a row that their budget's been cut greater than half on the capital side, and so they're doing everything they can. You hear me say on a regular basis, capital is a problem we have. This is the example. I always say capital, the first year you cut us, well, the first year that we passed on the cut, this is the Peoria schools should be receiving over $17 million. We receive around $2 million. We're cut 15. We were only cut about $7 million, so we were receiving about $7 million and only cut 10. That cut, when that increased, we had to pass that on to the schools and the departments. That is continues to be a problem, and I continue to receive requests from principals and from schools and from departments for increased capital. And unfortunately, at this time, we have some reserves, but if we use it, once you use it, it's gone, and I worry about that time when it gets down to zero. And so,
May I request an anecdote from Dr. Stifler? What did you say? We get $2 million a year, and one chiller costs $6.
I believe an air conditioner at one of our high schools, a chiller, is something like $2.5 million. To paint a high school is about $450,000. Every
so
individual air conditioner is about $6,000 on a package unit. We can go down the list. A bus is around $175,000 a piece.
So maybe we better use all of our capital funds on duct tape.
Thank you.
And super glue. Okay.
Thank you. Just to continue, we had a lot of discussion looking at some of the staffing models. So there was never a consensus, but there was a desire to look greater at how many assistant principals do we have. But as we started looking, and as a committee, we didn't feel qualified because there were additional programs or additional requirements. And actually, the teachers, there was a few of the teachers saying, holy cow, are you really thinking about we should be recommendation to cut assistant principals, because I'm sure I'll do all the things that now they were doing, and you'll make my life harder. And they were very much against that. And so the thought wasn't, let's look at how we can cut assistant principals, but let's maybe look at the staffing models, maybe look at what their job duties and requirements are. And the same went for instructional coaches. So we talked a lot about those models and what we have. And the thought was maybe there should be some change, or maybe there should be some modifications, maybe there should be some duty responsibilities. In our time period, we didn't feel like we had.
First saw this, I took a deep breath. I know how instrumental our instructional coaches are, so I'm looking forward to your leadership and our new appointee today, that how that looks going forward. And assistant principals are valued on our campuses, so thank you.
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, it's funny is on the surface when you look, there was a few people that I think, hey, let's get rid of certain assistant principals at below level, but when the teachers started explaining all the support that they get and that they would probably have to be doing all the work that happened, the conversation quickly stopped, and then it was like, wow, maybe we should look at what they do, maybe different models, maybe different calendars. It went all everywhere, but there was a lot of respect for the support that is provided to teachers from both of those positions.
And if the teachers like it, then that's a retention strategy.
Yes.
This was already mentioned earlier, but this also, part of that was before we said anything to certified staff, we brought it to the budget team to see, do they feel comfortable? We talked to the association, we talked to our executive team, and it was to provide a retention stipend of $250 for every certified staff, and a retention stipend to all classified staff of $75 each. To qualify, they must come back, so it's not just because they sign it, they get the money. It's not paid until August, and they must come back to the position to obtain that. This is for certified staff only, but we did receive the classroom site fund allocations, and there is an increase. So this is something I have talked about previously as well. Doing the calculations, we're recommending an increase in the amount of each fund by 11%. Just to be clear, that's not an 11% increase to teachers. That's just the amounts going up 11%. So as you can see, the 16-17 amount, average amount per position. So we have various levels based on their salary amount. So I just took them all and looked at the average. And so you have the average teacher is receiving about $1,236 in Fund 11 and $2,472 in Fund 13. And now those are both amounts going up by 11%. So you can see the average increase on the other side, 136 and 272 is about $408. That's the equivalent of almost a percent, so that's 0.9%, so almost a 1% raise just on the classroom site fund. So as previously we said, all staff get a 1%, you could layer on, the average teacher would also get another 0.9, so it'd be around approximately a 1.9% increase for next year for teachers. Now, the comments about an alternative budget was, first, the thought was, and you saw in my budget summary, I highlighted the inflation amount at 1.25%. Just on every example from the JLBC and the governor's budget, there's two different amounts. I've used the lower amount. And so the thought was, if some of the numbers are wrong and there's going to be more money, that we should have any additional funds provided by the state budget shall go to increases in the base pay for everybody unless specifically designated for a purpose that's not for all staff. And so the thought was, just on the surface, if we really get 1.37% instead of 1.25, that would actually mean everybody get about a 1.1% pay increase. And so we would use all those additional funds. There was conversation down at the state, at the legislature, that they were looking for additional funds for just teachers. Well, that money could only go for teachers, so that would not apply here because it's not an amount that could go for all staff. I know I send lots of notices to our legislature about capital funds. If they could increase our capital, restore some of those capital, the district additional assistance, the DAA fund, if they provide some of that, that goes to capital, so that would not go. So this is really any additional funds that could be used in the M&O purpose for everybody would go to just increase that amount from 1% up. However much it is, we'll just divide it and just give it to everybody. And so that was the thought here. The other thought was that if the state budget is less than the 1.25 for inflation, that we should honor the 1% and we would cover it with our carry forward. So we have a carry forward amount. It's not 100% determined right now, but as we get to the end, we have the AFR. We know we carry forward a certain amount. And this did happen last year. As the budget goes on, sometimes the inflation amount decreases because they use it sometimes a rolling 12 months, and they'll do the calculation, and it could come up 1.2 or 1.15. And so instead of saying everybody gets a 0.9% or a 0.95, we're saying let's just keep it at 1%, and then the carry forward will have to cover any differences that are in that to absorb that reduction. And I will stand for any comments. I will say just one additional. So I went through the whole presentation. The goal is that the board approve that. Then as we prepare all of our proposed budgets, we would implement all of these areas into the proposed budgets. And so the next time you see this would be in June when we have those proposed budgets ready.
Thank you.
I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. David Sandoval.
I do have a question. I don't know if we need to pull up the slide that references Prop 206. And the question is, I want to make sure I'm understanding what it's saying, but it's in and around more from a communication perspective. So if I'm reading this correctly, those that will be impacted by 206, meaning those that will be given an increase due to 206, will not realize the 1%. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. With that said, how is that being communicated to those two different groups, if you will?
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, we'll put together a communication to all staff. Nothing's been communicated now because this is the first anybody's seeing it because we've been working in budget teams in that sense. And so we'll communicate it out through the various ways that the Danielle with our polls, through the newsletter, through emails, and then posting it on our website so everybody knows.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I guess my main point is just making sure that it's understood that those who are realizing the increase due to 206, they don't feel, I don't want to use the word term slighted, but just they don't feel that, because they're not also getting the 1% base pay, that they feel less valued, I guess, right?
Yeah. Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, we talked about it. We have classified people on it, but everybody understands where this is. The reality is it's going to 1050, and then it's going to 11, and then it's going to 12.
Right.
So they will be getting 20, some of them 30% raises over a 3-year period, of which we thought that because of that, we don't need to worry about the 1% with them at this time. So we'll hope to communicate it,
Yep.
but they're realizing on average much, much greater percentage increases than anybody. And so that was the thought process behind it.
Yeah.
And so we'll do our best to communicate that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mrs. Connect?
No, I asked my questions along the way. Thank you.
Mrs. Doan? Well, I know this is always a difficult conversation. First, I want to acknowledge our committee, all the work and hours and time put in, so thank you so much, and going through all those tough questions. I just really want to acknowledge that the 1%, even though it's 1%, putting it towards teacher staff to help with that retention, and so I appreciate that conversation, and at this point, that's all I had to say.
I will say that normally if things are controversial or if there are groups or subgroups that have an issue with it, believe me, they reach out to us, and we haven't heard anything negative. So that's a very good sign that the process is effective and that people are feeling heard. So thank you for that.
Great, thank you. With that, do we have a motion?
Mike on. I recommend that we approve the compensation recommendations for the 2017-2018 school year.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, moving on. Number 13, discussion and consideration of approval of coaching and extra duty assignment and hourly and special assignment pay schedules.
Good evening again. Ms. Al Martinez, and members of the board, Dr. Stifler. Tonight, I come to you with a request to move on the recommendation for these two particular pieces. One is the supplemental coaching and extra duty activities piece, which is currently up on the board, and, on the screen, I should say. And this list of supplemental stipends had very few changes. I'll highlight the two changes that were made this year. One, per Dr. Beltram over there on the corner there, asked us to look and review, and she worked with her team to give us different dollar amounts for the work-based learning stipends. And the other addition was an additional lead called the Green Lead at each campus to support efficiencies in electricity, things along those lines. So that comes through Mr. Hicks' office. So those are the only two changes for that particular document. The other document that we attached tonight was the hourly special assignments document. This is one that we brought to you in December simply because of the changes in Proposition 206. And the reason why we brought it tonight is simply because we changed the date from 16-17 to 2017-18, and we wanted your approval of that document. You will again see that document in December as Prop 206 is subject to change our hourly rates again. So with that being said, I stand for any questions, and thank you for your time tonight.
All right, Mrs. Connect? Mrs. Doan? Mr. Sandoval? I do have one question.
I'll try and answer. Yes, ma'am.
So I was just, and you can do high overview. I was looking at the sports schedule and varsity football. And I look at varsity football in general compared to all the varsity sports. They have the highest amongst all their peers. Do you mind just shedding some light on how that is configured?
I wish I had all the information and I could give you information, but it may not be simply correct. Mr. Hicks, do you have any information on how those stipends were created, sir?
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, I don't have the historical knowledge of how they were created in a sense, but it is a there's a lot of kids, a lot of supervision required, so they have a lot more numbers in that sense. I don't want to say importance in that, but it's high visible, high gate receipts, more people going, a lot of expectations, and so.
Thank you. I
don't
appreciate
have
that
that.
logic. And if you
Yeah.
look at the number of students that they're monitoring, it does make sense, so I appreciate that, so.
Ms. Seha Martinez, members of the board. It's on my priority list. Unfortunately, it's about 10 or 12 down. These numbers haven't gone up for a very long time. And the coaches continue to do great things. There's just simply not funding to increase these. There's a repeated ask among the coaching ranks, and there is a retention rate within the coaching ranks. How much of my blood and sweat am I going to give up to do this and be away from my family? I fully support what's here. Fully support what's here. This is another funding issue within the state that this hasn't been touched in a long time. And the number of hours, and then there is a concern going forward about how we're going to have to accrue hours and leave and some of those sorts of things, and we're going to have to map that into all of this. It's going to be very difficult going forward. We're not quite there, but we're just about having to deal with that.
Thank you for that insight. And again, they're just as instrumental as our teachers because they service the whole child. So I appreciate that. Mr.
Yeah.
Sandoval, you have a comment?
Just a quick question, and this is for my own edification. So, because I might want to be the varsity head coach with that extra money, but how does that work, the process, if you will? For individuals, a pool of individuals, put their name in the hat to be the varsity coach or whatever, JV coach, wrestling. Is it an opening and individuals put their name in, they go through an interview process, so there's, equal opportunities there?
Yes, sir. We treat these supplemental stipends in particular for any of these positions, same as we would any other position. The position is posted on our website. Applications from external or internal can put in, I believe, even from year after year. Some schools open up those positions, even if there was someone on their staff that had it the year before, simply to allow for a larger candidate pool to come into the mix.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I look forward to that discussion in the future. Excellent. With that being said, do we have a motion?
This is a long one. A motion to approve the coaching and extra duty assignment and hourly and special assignment pay schedules.
Passes. Thank you. Moving right along, discussion regarding board meeting structure and format.
Ms. Seha Martinez,
Mrs. Dunn.
may I suggest we take a break
Oh, yes.
for about 5 minutes?
I was looking at that as well. Thank you. That's right. Again for your patience. We're going to move on to the next item, which is discussion regarding governing board meeting structure and format.
Ms. Ceja Martinez, members of the board. This item is on the agenda because because the only place the governing board can really talk about it is together when they're seated as a board. So let me try and shape this. So by, excuse me, by regular part of the schedule that we had set up, or that I'd asked you to set up, about study session, regular meeting, that kind of a thing, this would have been a study session. It is a study session because we still haven't got to the study session agenda item, and yes, ma'am. And yet we needed to accomplish the budget piece. It is a priority in our district to recognize the good things that are happening in schools. We have moved our meeting to a later time. I have received individual feedback from governing board members that when you are able to have a discussion, you appreciate being seated off the dais and being face to face with one another. I hear that, and I'm not trying to blow that off. We have also been fighting with the equipment in here every time we move the podium, those sorts of things. And so all of that. As I reviewed our policy on this, our policy has very little. In former districts that I worked in, there's a clear order of how things are going to be, and it's in policy and how that's going to happen. I'm not saying we have to have that. There's a lot of room within our policy to run the government, to do the work of the public how you see fit, including numbers of meetings, times of meetings, structures of meetings. We must follow the open meeting law, but there's a lot of different room. So this agenda item is an opportunity to have the conversation that several of you have said we need to have. And so there, I'll stand down.
Well, I do like the recognitions. And I don't want to leave anybody out, but it often takes up an hour almost. So I was wondering if maybe we could put that at one meeting rather than both. Something like that. Not the study session, leave it off at the study session. I think we had discussed that before. There's also the possibility of sticking in an extra meeting somewhere. Everybody's going to chop my head off for saying that one.
There's not many people left in the room, so.
Well, there's the 3 or 4 million people you said were watching online, right?
The millions of fans, that's right.
Our millions of fans. But it's hard to be here all night, Most of us has kids, family, we want to get home to, things to, it's hard to be here all night. And Beverly can't come to the early, she has Peter, and it's very hard on her to handle her job and that kind of thing to make the hour earlier. So I don't know, maybe an extra meeting a month or scaling back on some things. Just throwing that out.
Thank you. We'll start off the conversation, and Mr. David Sandoval.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the premise behind the strategy sessions was to have a platform for diverse input, meaning, certainly the community, teachers, staff, district-wide. I know as we, take a look at future agenda items and what we feel should be on those study sessions, one thing that I think, would benefit the overall impact of the district is really trying to solicit and incorporate feedback from the individuals that I just mentioned with regard to future subjects, within our board meetings. So that said, how that works from a communications perspective, to get those, the individuals to understand that this is an opportunity. These study sessions are truly opportunities to express your voice, et cetera, and express, key priorities in their mind that they feel needs to be addressed across the district. Diverse thought, I think, just makes us smart about what we do, and allows to, really broaden our reach as it relates to the key priorities in the district. So I guess what I'm saying is overall, we've kind of, I don't know if we've ever really, we've kind of gone away from that a little bit. I'd liked the rationale behind why a study session versus the business session, which was what I just stated. So, hopefully that's something that we can get back to.
Mrs. Connect?
I'm assuming that the context of this conversation will be relayed to President Pingarelli so she knows, what's going on, right?
I will make sure that happens.
Because I'm sure she has a lot of input as well. I understand. I still wish that we could start earlier. 5 works better for me and for my family. And not so much that I want to get out of here, but I think I make better conversations. I'm a better conversationalist, and I think more clearly earlier in the evening. I start shutting down. So, and I always feel I feel bad for our staff members who've been here all day. So I apologize for that. If that's not an option, certainly I think we need to think about ways that we may make our conversations more succinct and more direct. I remember over the years in my early days, we used to have meetings that would go on literally for 4 and 5 hours, that we do not want to go in that direction. But through that, and learning from other school boards and the School Boards Association, I was advised, and I think this is a fair goal for us to set, is our meetings should be 2 hours or less. After that, we're probably not being very effective or efficient. So I think that's a reasonable goal for us to set. It was my understanding at the beginning of the year when we talked at retreat that we were going to do the back and forth, and that our second meeting would be a study session. Clearly, that didn't even hold for one meeting. And so it's going to take some restraint from administration and our agenda setting people if that's the way we want to go. And maybe it's not. Maybe there's just too much in the pattern of the way we do things that we have to have 2 business meetings a month. And that may be where we land. But I agree with Judy, if that's the case, then we're going to have to set aside some extra time to do the study session. We're looking tonight at starting a study session at 8:15 at night. I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't think that's going to work tonight. Study sessions are usually those topics of conversation that need us to look at each other,
Hash things out.
ask good questions of one another, read each other's body language. That can't be done in a straight line, shoulder to shoulder. I really don't believe that. Another thing we could do to shorten the time, and I hope this will be relayed to Mrs. Pingarelli, in the last few months we've gotten in the habit of going down the line and having everybody speak. I don't know that that's necessary. It is an added responsibility of the board chair to actually scan the group, but that is a way that maybe we could shorten things up, and unless somebody's saying, I have something to say, we could skip that. And as well as the speakers today. It was wonderful hearing our students speak today, and certainly we want to give every opportunity for them to chime in if they want to, but we don't necessarily have to ask each one to answer each question, because I think that, sometimes it's, and we do this, sometimes we'll say, yes, I agree with what Mr. Sandoval said, yes, I agree with what Mrs. Martinez said. And that is sufficient to relay the content of the message. So I think those are just some little things that we might be able to do. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I want to shorten up the meetings for the sake of shortening up the meetings. I still think when there are things that need to be said, when there's information that needs to be gathered, we need to do our due diligence and do that, but with an eye towards being effective and efficient and honoring the personal lives of our staff members who are here Those are some things that we might want to consider.
Thank you. I can't speak on behalf of Mrs. Pengarelli, and definitely not you, Dr. Stifler, but if I remember in the first meeting as well, the goal was to keep these as business meetings, and study sessions as study sessions, and was also reiterated in Mrs. Pengarelli's, and I believe she quoted an hour and a half, max 2 hours. So she is also unfair.
Yeah.
I will be the first one to admit, I'm a talker. We have some talkers. And then being a new governing board member, David and Mr. Sandoval and I are learning this process. So a great point to add in a new governing board meeting process training. That would help with that piece for the future. But looking at these current situations, I like the idea of having a study session. But when Beverly and I and Dr. Stifler meet, we are a large district that constantly something has to be added because it's pertinent information that needs to be dealt with. So as much as we would like to say study session only, we've been instructed or recommended because we need to vote on something because it's we've been pushing it on too long or it's precedent. So yes, we did have control, but at the same time, it was highly recommended we get these items on the agenda, on the list, these items on the agenda. And then so goes the current situation that we're facing. By all means,
Well, I was just thinking, if that's the case, and I'm leaning towards that is the case, that we really can't go from 1 month to the next without having some action items. But maybe then they don't have to be 2-hour meetings. Maybe they don't have to be 2 2-hour meetings plus a study session, right? I mean, if we have a few action items and we need to get together because of a calendar item that has a deadline, that doesn't have to be a 2-hour meeting.
I once attended a 1-27 meeting.
Right.
And those are all great comments, but we can't ignore the fact we're a large district, K-12, and a lot of changes, new administrator, superintendent, new org chart, so a lot of things are changing, and I don't foresee that the future of this decision-making going away, that it's going to be a minute and 47 seconds. Hopeful.
27.
We have goals.
Yes, ma'am.
With this study session, I had some thought process with this is, yes, understanding the process, creating dialogue, but the end goal of the study session. What is the purpose of even having the study session, or what are we looking for, a strategic plan of the study session? I looked at today's, and there's some pretty concrete formula that we need to discuss. I like that structure. So the study session also needs to have a purpose, and I feel that as much as I love to talk, we're just talking. And as much as we would like to have, I know Judy, at one point you said that sometimes our administration or governing board seems intimidating. That's a great opportunity to take that, put on an even playing field to do so. But again, not very many people are stepping up to the round table to have that discussion. Or as much as I would love to have people coming to the governing board meetings, they are not, because one, they are long and so forth. Like I said before, I would meet every week.
And I would have every meeting at a round table.
Study sessions is a great idea. I know Beverly has opportunities on the weekends. Again, does all the staff need to be there for a study session, depending on the topic? I understand this is volunteer as well. So there's a lot of awesome ideas and great points that you guys are bringing up, but we can't ignore the fact that we have a lot of decisions to make.
A lot of work to do. I agree with you.
So wondering if, I see the value in a study session without question. Wondering, I don't know if there's even a trend that shows, based on years past, which board meetings typically are longer or what have you, if there is any consistency there, but.
Controversial board meetings. They're always longer.
So, or do we go to, study sessions, every other month, knowing that we have so many, But, I mean, having more meetings, you know, I don't know if that's conducive to everyone's schedule, you know, and or even starting earlier. I don't know if it's a start time more than the productivity and actionable dialogue, right, that we have at each meeting. So if we can figure out a way to maybe spread out the study sessions, you know, every other month versus every month, and you know, and if, you know, limit the action items to a study session to maybe 1 or 2, and have a timestamp. You know, if we have a study session, we need to get into that subject by, I don't know, 7 p.m.
We could give Mrs. Sehar Martinez a little bell, and if somebody starts talking too much, you can just
Perfect.
ring the little bell. I know how we can save 5 minutes a meeting. We can ask Mr. Hicks to quit addressing the entire governing board and everybody by name. Just be a little informal, say, guess what, y'all? Yes. I'm just teasing Mr. Hicks.
And we can be we're a small board, we can be as informal as we like.
That's true.
Yeah, so I mean, again, I don't know if I have the answer tonight, but what I do know is, and I think everybody agrees, that study sessions are important to the success of PUSD.
I think that just one more piece is, as a governing board, what's our strategic plan for a year-by-year basis? And then that will help guide the conversation of the study sessions and what our ultimate goal is. And so that way we can relay that to our district administration, and then those touch points come back and see if we need to revisit our goal. But if we create a more yearly goal, then that can guide that conversation.
I think, too, one thing that would clear up sometime on our business meetings is if, when we go through and read our packet, you know, do the agenda and study, go ahead and, we could just call in if we have questions, right?
Yes, ma'am.
We could get some of these things answered before the meeting. And instead of sitting here and having to ask and go through everything and.
I agree. However, speaking to everybody, they feel the perception, and you brought this up, and Mr. Bullock did as well, the perception is that we're rubber stamping or we're not doing our due diligence. So at some point, the community wants to know that we ask all these questions, because look at the last bond example or the boundary example. We got a ton of emails. If we would have just privately asked those questions to Mr. Hicks.
Well, this is true. That's a big issue.
Right. So those types of scenarios, people think that we didn't ask, we didn't do our due diligence, that we said, okay, we have an idea, let's vote, boom, and we're done. That's my concern.
That's a good concern.
If I may add, we're almost through the school year. We have one more school board meeting before the end of the year, because the second meeting in May has been canceled, because it's very important that we're at graduation, okay? So I'm guaranteeing you it won't be fixed in 2 weeks. I'm just telling you, that's not going to happen. I will work with Mrs. Pingarelli, Ms. Sehar Martinez, to schedule a retreat this summer, where we could accomplish some of accomplish some of what's been said regarding items that need to be studied or discussed more fully, without action, hopefully. I think that there are some things we can do on calendaring out the year that could streamline, and we could do that. It is still my goal to have a business meeting and something else. I do believe we can do all of those things. I hadn't fully anticipated until I ran into calendars, I didn't know they existed this year on my first run through. Right, so budget had to be on this meeting so that we could complete this, so that we could issue contracts for classified employees and do those other sorts of pieces. That's why I couldn't wait, right? Some of those sorts of things. I can get a better handle on those things. I'll take all that.
But you do agree we can't start a study session at 8:30, right?
I would agree we shouldn't. It's scheduled.
We could, right.
It's So you could table this item if you'd like this evening,
But
certainly.
in general, that's not the way.
I would not call it best practice.
Yes, okay.
I would not call it best practice. Adopting a budget, if you're a giant district or a small district, it's one task. Setting a calendar, whether you're a giant district or a small district, it's one task. Setting your stipend schedule, whether you're a giant district or a small district, it's one task, right? Those don't necessarily, our scale doesn't necessarily make those things larger.
Right.
We adopt all travel at the same time. It doesn't matter if there's more. Where the board in that discussion, to give you some think time as we look forward to that meeting, on the very real concern that's been, and the priority about inviting staff in and recognizing staff, that's difficult to balance with the business meeting. It's critical. It's part of the great success of this district. There are some districts that kind of have that kind of a thing before. Then actually the board has dinner together, and then they have their business meeting. There are, as Mrs. Kinnick said, there are many ways to do this. Doesn't have to be in a straight line. It could always be in a round table, okay, or whatever. So we can work that out this summer and map that out further. I'm glad, though it's late, that you took the time this evening to begin to discuss this. I think from each of you I'd heard, hey, that's not what I thought we were going to do. And the open meeting law, we need to talk about it out loud. And so there we be.
And there are a lot of factors to balance. The
Yeah.
needs of the employees, the needs of the school board members, the desire of the community to hear what we're saying, open meeting law.
It's going to take a while. We're
Let
going
me,
to have to
let me share one other piece tonight. Do not, I mean this just as a statement of fact, not as a whiny sort of a thing. Every governing board meeting takes hours and hours and hours and hours of executive administration's time to prepare for. That's time that the executive administration is not focused on running the district, but upon supporting the board. It's our job. We will do that. You just need to have that piece of information. If something needs to be discussed, we'll do whatever the legwork is necessary to get that done. Right? We have, after the board has said, this is what we want on the agenda, then we talk about, well, what would that look like? Then we assign the homework out. Get ready for that. Then we come back and we say, is that what we did? And we run through that. That's hours and hours for each of those things. It's my job. I will always do that. I just want you to understand that there's a cost in everything. There's a cost in everything. So the things we need to talk about, what I'm recommending is, need to be the things we really need to talk about. So.
I'll say this very quickly. I agree with Monica Masaya around the strategic plan. I think that's going to guide us, and it allows us to be a little more structured and I guess purposeful with regard to the subject matter at our study sessions, without question. So I know that's something that we're working on, but I think that's something that will definitely help us streamline these board meetings.
Excellent. And with that, I believe that's all the conversation. I look forward to our summer shindig. All right, moving on. Study session. I believe I heard a little bit of conversation. Do we want to table this?
We're at 15.
Oh. Thank you, I'm a skipper.
Hear me there.
Number 15, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings.
I'm sorry.
We don't have time for any.
We only have one meeting left. All right. Hey, worker.
I have a question. There were some adjustments to the calendar you were working on, sir?
Yes, so the adjustments on the, depends on how you want to define calendar. So on conference days,
Yes.
which was with, yes, but on.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda item.
But we asked for that to be shared with us, so that will be shared with us?
I do believe I put
It
in
was
my
in the
last
letter.
writing, in the super
Oh,
report
okay.
that I wrote on Sunday night, I wrote about that much about the agreed agreement with the teachers and the administration on how to proceed.
Right,
And
right, but Mike, we don't have to take action on that?
it is not necessary for the board to take action because you're not adding or subtracting any days to the year.
Okay,
And
that was my.
that's what the board's responsibility is.
Okay, that's my question. And we had asked for an MOU, conversation about an MOU, is that calendared?
That's calendared for May, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that when we don't have our second meeting in May. Yes, but I have not skipped that or that. We are gearing up for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other discussion about number 15? All right, moving on, study session number 16, Introduction to Arizona School Board Association Equity Challenge.
Mrs. Sehar Martinez, perhaps I could share this. Mrs. Davy has done an awesome job, as has our very own LPT, who went home ill today, to prepare for this meeting. The crux of this meeting, you have all of the pieces there. This is to begin the process, and so we are gathering all the data to fill that in, because you're not in a position to answer those questions until we get you the data.
Right.
And so my recommendation to you is that you move off this agenda item and wait till we give you all of that information before you take further action. But we stand prepared, Mrs. Davy and I, to support you in the discussion regarding ASBA's Equity Challenge. We recognize it as a very important issue. It is close to many people's hearts, if not everyone's heart. And I do not mean to slight that in any way. Just the concern about the time and the conversation that was before.
Thank you. Mr. Sandoval, were you going to say something? Mrs. Connect?
Yes, I'm sorry, Miss Davy. No, you don't have to get up as far as I'm concerned. Let me just tell you what I was thinking, what I was envisioning, and maybe that aligns with what you were thinking. First of all, I think the first part about defining equity within our community and within our school district, I absolutely think that is a roundtable discussion. Absolutely. The second part of it is getting familiar with your demographics, and I know that's part of what you're going to share with us so that we can mull about that. I wanted to make sure that gifted education is part of that too. I don't know if that was on that list, but I would like to see that moving forward. And then the rest of it, again, I think, what did I even write there? Is a roundtable discussion kind of thing. But maybe, because I don't want to totally dismiss the fact that you have stayed here so long, do you want to kind of give us an overview of how you envision the conversation going?
Thank you, Mrs. Connect. I was going to say if she can do a high overview.
Of what we can expect. That would be awesome.
Governing Board members, Dr. Stifler, thank you. Yes, this evening, all we were planning on doing was truly just giving you a high overview of what it was, because basically the work will entail us working with you after we've gathered all the data. Because basically the decisions is what are we going to do as a district? What do you want to do with the district based on the information we provide you? Again, you've seen the slides. You have the link to the ASBA. I can swish through the 10 slides quickly, or you can read it upon your own. I will do whatever you would like. I'm here at your pleasure this evening.
Well, I do think in the interest of saving time, that as soon as that data is available, maybe that's something that we have a chance to digest before we sit down, rather than sit down and then go back and look at the data, that we get that ahead of time.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the only thing that I would like to see is a trend. Well, I understand that our current, when it breaks out our diversity within our district and our community today, but, it would be interesting to see what it looked like 7-10 years ago, so we can see a shift. And potentially, when you look forward, we can forecast and make sure that, we're addressing that growth of certain sectors within our population. That, and then I know you had in there the, lifestyles, certainly ethnic, et cetera. What I didn't see much of is the, the behavioral aspect of it, meaning a student's environment. You know, those students who, you know, where their learning barriers are more a result of trauma or broken homes, et cetera. I mean, those other kind of learning barriers that we know so much more about today. I know that's probably not part of the equity challenge, but I think for me, when you take a look at, you know, the dynamics that we need to address as a district, you know, that's certainly one, you know, from an equity perspective that, you know, we need to certainly have top of mind. So thank you.
Mrs. Stone, do you have anything to add?
I just want to thank you for your hard work that you've put on this. And I know you're going to help us understand what we're doing. So I'm looking forward to digging in and doing a good job of it when we have some time. Thank you very much.
Excellent, and I agree with my colleagues here. I know that we do have some special scenarios within our community group homes that feed into our schools. That was the only thing I didn't really see if we have any special circumstances like that across our district. But it's challenging to ask questions if I don't know what I'm asking questions about, so.
Governing Board, thank you for your input. I will add those subgroups. Some of those are included. We do have the longevity. We're at an advantage here because we just came off advanced ed. So we will be inputting some of that information, but I will add those groups that weren't included to include that in the data when we present it to you.
Right. And, you know, if our community is wondering, well, why are they doing this? Is it because it really helps us as a school district evaluate how it is we're using our resources to be most effective so that we are meeting our strategic plan to make sure that every student is having an opportunity to meet his or her potential.
Thank you. And thank you this evening. And like Dr. Stifler said earlier, the work that we do on this could help us with our strategic plan in the fall.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I may add one quick thing. Ms. Davy, I have not seen the challenge that she is not up to. The reason the data is not all loaded is because I wanted current data. I wanted this year's achievement data. And as good as she is, she can't provide that yet, as she doesn't have that data yet. And that's why you don't have all those data sheets completed. I wanted this school year's data for you to look at. And so I just wanted to make sure that no shade was cast upon her, that we're still in the data collection process.
Thank you very much.
We know, she's great.
Yes.
I have one more, we go back to the future agenda items? I have one more question.
I believe the next item says board member opportunity to readdress. You're right on cue.
All right, may I?
Mrs. Connect.
So forgive me.
Yes.
So forgive me for not knowing the details of the logistics. It's not my strength. But in the past, and Judy, maybe you can help me with this, we had some benchmarks where we sat down and talked with our superintendent.
Yes.
When is that next on the calendar?
We're overdue.
I thought we might be, and let's get together. That'd be cool. I would like to calendar that.
Yes, ma'am.
And not that I have an issue about anything, it's just good for us to be consistently monitoring where we are and where we're going.
It's also impossible for the superintendent to get the performance pay without that.
What, you want performance pay?
Me too.
When we went to the National School Board in Colorado, I went to a workshop just for that. So I'll send you all those slides.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Any other items like to be addressed? Okay. Number 18, consideration of adjournment.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I apologize for the length.
Thank you. The meeting's adjourned.